Hello, fifth graders. My name is Mrs. Maddox, and I'm from Kids on the Land. And fifth graders, we are so sorry we can't be with you out on the land again this year because of COVID-19 pandemic. We hope you've been able to watch the videos for fifth grade that's been up on our website. But today we're going to create a new video for you. And we're so grateful at Kids on the Land to have Dr. Paul Martin with us again. Dr. Paul Martin has been a leader for Kids on the Land for many years. And he tells us he is a conservationist in his heart. Now, Paul, what does it mean to say you are a conservationist in your heart?
I think the simplest way of expressing it is that I want to conserve as much of nature as possible. I want to live as a ethical or moral human in concert with nature, and I want to try to conserve this wonderful diversity of life that we can have on the ecosphere.
Thank you, Paul. Now, Paul is a scientist by training. He has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from Texas A&M in the study of entomology, and he has a PhD from Florida University in that same entomology field. He has worked as an entomologist for the Texas Department of Agriculture. He's also been an agricultural consultant across Texas, and for 22 years he was a professor at St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas. Now, he currently resides in Seguin, but he's also an author. And this is his book. And I'll tell you something else. He's also a poet. Now, Dr. Paul Martin, will you tell us today about your video that you have titled, The Goodness of Good Water?
Sure.
Water ecology?
You know that we're mostly water. We think we're pretty hot stuff, but we're mostly made up of water. And most living systems are made up mostly of water. So we need good quality water. We need to protect the water that we have and enhance that quality of water. And what we're going to do today is a little exercise. We're going to sample for the living things in the water, and depending on what kind of living organisms we find, we're going to decide if this little bit of water here, or wherever you might be if you want to test water, we're going to get an indication if it's excellent water, good water, fair water, or poor water, based on the organisms that we find in the water.
And you've got some volunteers who are going to help you.
I am so grateful to have great volunteers that I see out here today. So I want to express my gratitude.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Paul Martin. I spent a lot of time in entomology, the study of insects. And I want to say just a little bit about some of the vocabulary words that we're going to use today and do just a little brief introduction. First of all, I'd like for you youth to realize that you're all scientists. Science is really just the quest for knowledge. Quest for knowledge. Hopefully some wisdom and prudence in there too, but basically it's just the quest for knowledge, and we're all seeking knowledge, right? Some of the terminology that we use, I think all of y'all know what biology is. Bio just means life, and the last part of the word og means the study of. And basically we're doing biology today when we study, you know, what we're calling the goodness of good water, because we're going to look at organisms in that water, in other words, life, living organisms in that water, and we'll essentially be studying it to determine if that water is good water. There's a term that I have used with some students this week that maybe I'll define real quickly, but I want to make sure if I use the word taxonomy that you understand what that word means. We're going to be looking at different kinds of diversity, essentially, in the water that we're going to be studying. And if we're going to be studying diversity, or the different kinds, the variation of species in that water, we need to be able to identify them and put them into different groups. Taxon just means group. And so taxonomy, if you hear somebody use that supposedly kind of big word, it just means grouping. You're putting things into different categories. Key components of an ecosystem are soil, water, the living organisms, and the solar energy. Today we're going to focus on water. And the short and sweet answer to that question, which is the most important? They're all very important, right? One's not really more important than the other. We're going to test for some organisms. We're going to search for organisms that are tolerant of pollution and less tolerant of pollution. If we have a lot of organisms that are not tolerant of pollution, they don't like pollution, they don't like waste and nasty water, it might be very good water. It might be great water.
Clean.
Yeah. And we have tools that we're going to use. The main tool we're going to use today is an aquatic net, and y'all will be seeing that net as we sample today in the techniques. And finally, we need to be able to identify the organisms in order to study it. So we'll be identifying some of the organisms in the water, and the identifying of those organisms is called taxonomy. But if you wanted to use another word, just grouping, it's the same thing. Okay, so the objective is to determine if this water that's running down here from this spring is of good condition. Is it drinkable? Is it swimmable? Is it good for other organisms? That's the main thing. Is it good water or is it bad water? The first thing we're going to do is state the problem. Let's just say water quality. Up on number 1, just water quality. For my pond research, we'll just say looking for macroinvertebrates and vertebrates. Now, let's make sure we know what these words mean. So, what in the heck is a vertebrate?
A vertebrate is something that has a backbone.
There we go. For now you have an A. For now you have an A. This one's for Dan. What about an invertebrate? What would that be?
No backbone.
No backbone, okay? They generally have exoskeletons. The skeleton is outside of the body, therefore they have to molt. So we're going to be looking for some of both of those. The next thing we want to write down is I want them to just take a look at that water. And what this is called is a hypothesis, an educated guess. What I want y'all to write down is what you think your guess right there is the quality of the water. Good, fair, excellent, poor, terrible, whatever. Okay, and so in a minute we're going to do some sampling down in that water with this net right here. I'm going to pull this up, hope I don't hit you. We're going to use this as our basic tool we're going to use. And we're going to go down to the water, and each of these folks will have a net and a bucket, and I'll put a little water in it. And then I'll show you how we sample the water, and then we'll bring it back and we'll try to make a count on the different kinds that we have. We have a record sheet that we'll fill out. But before we do that, we're going to write down some additional information. So what time is it right now?
It is 2:06.
So write 2:06 there, and whatever the date is, what is September 2001. We need to give it a name, 69 Ranch Stream. And Dan over here measured the temperature of the water, and he did that, and he told me that it was 65 degrees Fahrenheit.
There you go.
My last question before we go to work. Why are you taking all this extra information? Time, pond name, and then the temperature of the water. These additional data can help explain your data, your real key data. It can help you explain that. So that's why we always try to take as much supported data as possible. We're going to go down to the pond and do some sampling, then we're going to come back with our samples and fill this out. So y'all want to grab a net, and I'll show y'all how to sample, and grab a net and a bucket.
Okay.
So in taking this kind of sample, I don't want to go too deep, because if I go too deep, I'm going to get just a bunch of silt. It's not be able to see much. And I try to kind of push the aquatic vegetation to the side so I don't get so much aquatic vegetation in it. This is actually watercress. You push the watercress and some of this other vegetation aside, some of this algae, and then you just kind of, you can go through, it's good to go through some of that watercress because you don't want to get too much and clog it up. And then you can kind of take it out and sort of shake it, and then you should have a little bit of water in the bottom of your bucket. But I can see already in there, let me go ahead and show Mr. Mitch here. You know, I've got a bunch of little, they look like little shrimp, small little shrimp crawling around in there. Those are scuds. So when you go back to your record sheet, you can check off scuds. And the way we do this, if you see something somebody else has, you can check it off too, okay? So anyway, there's little scuds in there that look like little shrimp. And I think y'all already have kind of the idea of how you do it. And then you go over to your bucket. You should have a little bit of water in it, and then you just dump it in there. There are other techniques associated with these nets you can use on fast-moving streams, but this is the general way I do it. I will tell you folks that we have found in here in the past dragonfly nymphs, and if you want to look at some of this stuff, you can Google aquatic macroinvertebrates and vertebrates, and you'll see some of the examples of some of these. But we found dragonfly nymphs, damselfly nymphs. In this water are nymphs, the immatures. We don't really, sometimes we call them larvae, but they're not really larvae. We call them nymphs, which is just an immature and incomplete metamorphosis, and they're feeding on other organisms in this water. Dragonflies are pretty wicked predators, okay? Both as adults and immatures. We found crayfish in here. We found minnows. I know we'll find minnows today. This morning we found a big giant water bug. These little scuds, we almost always find the scuds, which are like little small, very small shrimp. We found diving water beetles. A lot of different diving water beetles, including one called a dentistid. So once you think you have a pretty good sample, you can bring it on up here and we'll look through them. Okay, so we'll just all check them off, if y'all don't mind.
Okay.
We can check off water striders. Everybody saw those, right?
Yep.
So somewhere there's water strider.
Creeping
Now
over
these
bugs.
are
Oh, I see it.
sensitive, these are somewhat sensitive, and these are insensitive. So they can tolerate pollution quite a bit.
We got
Now-
fish.
Now these little, okay, check off minnows, or fish. You can check off those. Did anybody see a frog?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I
didn't
saw
catch
one this
one.
morning too.
Saw
See,
several.
I would check off frog.
Okay.
Now, swimming around in here is a small little organism. Let me stir them up a little bit. Where are you guys? Okay, there's one swimming right there. See that little
Yeah.
gold critter? Move. See that little critter right there? See
Yeah.
it goes up the top? If you looked at it real closely, it looks like a small shrimp. It's called a scud. So we always find a lot of scuds. This morning, y'all had a lot of scuds on the bottom of your.
Oh yeah.
And did y'all see that diving beetle a while ago?
Yes.
That beetle over here.
Was he that black one that's
Yeah,
moving around?
right. Right. So you could check off diving beetle if you saw it.
Okay.
So what you do is you tally your first row up and you multiply that by 3. Then you tally your next row up and you multiply it by 2. And then you tally your last row up and you multiply that by 1. Then you add all those together.
17.
I got 17.
Okay.
Okay.
And so then you look over here at your points, and it says that it's over 13 points, so it's excellent water. So the score was 17, and it was excellent water. The bottom line was, as a result of our survey and our study, it's pretty good water. I would go out there and drink it. I would eat, you know, a crayfish, raw or cooked, from this water. And I might even lay down in it on a hot day like this and go for a shallow swim. So I think that it is good to excellent water.
Kids on the land, kids on the land, kids and nature go hand in hand. Gather your friends, come along with me. Get to know your nature neighbors naturally. There's animals and insects and plants galore. There's fossils and history of what's happened before. This world is a-spinning and it's only beginning. Will there always be room for more? Sure! Kids on the land, kids on the land. Learn about this world starting right where you stand. The earth is alive, ain't it just grand? Let's keep it that